Let us try to find out what different dialects Old English had. Early Old English was not so much a language as a group of related dialects brought to southern Britain by Germanic invaders from their homelands during the 5th and 6th centuries. Differences already existed between the dialects of various tribes involved in the invasions, including Angles, Saxons, and Jutes, and further divisions may have evolved within the separate kingdoms formed under tribal leaders. The major dialects of Old English are Northumbrian, that is north of the Thames River, Mercian, north of the Thames River, West Saxon kingdom in the southwest. Almost all Old English literature is preserved in manuscripts transcribed in this region, and Kentish in the southeast. Here is the map of the United Kingdom for you to see the dialects of the Old English as they were spoken and where they were spoken. The most outstanding feature of Old English is the way it takes inflections with the case system. So we will talk about how the case system works in Old English. There are 4 main grammatical cases in Old English. They are nominative, accusative, genitive, and dative. The nominative is used for the subject or the person or thing performing an action. For example, the king ruled the kingdom. Here the king is the subject. The accusative is used for the direct object or the person or thing to which the action is done. For example, an assassin murdered the king. Here's the king is the object. The genitive is used to express possession. For example, the king's reign lasted for 20 years. The dative is used for the indirect subject and after many prepositions. For example, his subjects owed allegiance to the king. The Old English is famous for its inflections. Now here let's look at the pattern of inflections in nouns and determiners in the Old English. The pattern of inflections for the noun king in Old English, cunning, together with the corresponding forms of the determiner the, is as follows. We can see here in the table nominative, accusative, genitive, and dative, and how the inflections change as the cases change in singular and plural, which are so different. The phrase the king in Old English would be pronounced in the singular nominative case, say cunning. Now we can see here in this table how this say cunning which is in modern English, the king changes according to the case system in accusative, genitive, dative, and so on. And now we can also see how the say cunning, which is the king, changes in the plural form as well when it goes to become from nominative to accusative and from accusative to genitive and then dative. Also, Old English nouns belong to one of the 3 genders, masculine, feminine, and neuter. Old English cunning is a masculine noun and illustrates the general pattern of inflections for masculine nouns. For feminine nouns such as the queen and neuter nouns such as the wife, woman, which is woman, the corresponding inflections are as follows. We can see here how the phrase the queen changes according to the case, again the same way as the one that we saw before. So in the nominative case, it would be Seo Queen, which is the queen in singular form. Now it changes again in accusative and then again in genitive and then in dative. So when it turns to become plural, that changes again because of gender, because of the singularity and plurality, and also because of the case system. And we see a huge identification of the changes from the singular to plural, from one case to another, and again from one gender to another is the inflections. The inflections are so obvious here. Also to note here is that the form of the singular determiner changes according to the gender of the noun, while the plural determiners remain the same irrespective of gender. The gerund plurals of some present-day English nouns such as deer, fish, and sheep derive from the Old English neutral gender, where only the form of the determiner shows that with the woman is singular, whereas that with the women is plural. Now let us analyze how adjectives work in Old English. One of the features that distinguish Germanic languages is the use of two sets of inflections for adjectives, depending on whether they are preceded by a determiner. For example, the good kings as opposed to good kings, or the kings are good. The pattern of inflections for Old English adjectives that are preceded by a determiner is as follows. We can look at the examples here that are singular, masculine, feminine, neuter, and plural, all genders. So we have nominative, accusative, genitive, and dative. The pattern of inflections for Old English adjectives that are not preceded by a determiner is as follows. We can see another set of examples here where we have singular masculine, feminine, and neuter plural masculine and feminine neuter. So how they are different from case to case, from nominative to accusative, and from accusative to genitive and dative. In the case of pronouns, as in present-day English, they may be used in place of noun phrases. Thus, a noun phrase such as the good king can be represented by a pronoun he. Indeed, present-day English pronouns retain many aspects of the case system, with different forms used to express subject, object, and possession. For example, he ruled his kingdom until an assassin murdered him. The pronoun system of Old English looks like this, and we have examples here in the table. We have singular and plural, we have masculine, feminine, and neuter, we have first person, second person, third person, and then the chains according to the case system, such as the nominative to accusative, and accusative genitive, and genitive to dative. So we have these changes here in this pattern that we can see how pronouns function in Old English. The most interesting thing to observe in Old English is to see how the inflections work and how they're different than they would be in modern English. We can see here that some of the pronouns look like modern English pronouns as well, but some of the others disappeared over time when it changed from Middle English to the Middle English. Now let's talk about verbs in Old English. Old English verbs have only two tenses, present and past. The present tense was also used for the future, while the past perfect was signaled by the past tense. With the adverb formerly, I loved, I had loved. However, Old English verbs also have three moods. The indicative mood, which is used for statements of fact. For example, I love him. The imperative mood, used for commands. For example, love me. And the subjunctive mood, used for hypothetical statements. For example, if I loved you. And reported speech. For example, he said he loved me. As in present-day English, there are two main types of verbs in Old English: strong verbs and weak verbs. Strong verbs change their vowel in different tenses. For example, sing, sang, song. And weak verbs use inflectional endings for the same purpose.